World of Warcraft should be dead by now. At least that's what everyone says.
You can't even understand what the is happening in the game.
It is literally unplayable in ways that we did not expect, and I am not joking.
When WoW was good, it's, life-destroying, bro. You know, I don't want to do anything else except play it. And that's currently not the case right now.
Like, I could do this. I just close the game. Like, I don't want to play the game.
I mean, I get it. This game came out in 2004. At the time, Shrek 2 was the biggest movie in the world. Facebook was still only for college kids. And I thought RuneScape was the peak of online worlds. And yet, here we are. 20 plus years later, people are still logging into Azeroth, still raiding, and still watching Shrek. At its peak in 2010, WoW had over 12 million subscribers. 12 million. That's a bigger population than 152 countries, and there's only like 233-ish. It was so huge, it bled into everything. This wasn't just a game, it was a cultural juggernaut. But every MMO dies.
Gentlemen, this could very well lead to the end of the world of Warcraft. No! No!
EverQuest, Ultima Online, Star Wars Galaxies, WildStar. They burned bright and then faded away. And every few years, the same thing supposedly happens to WoW. People declare it dead. YouTubers talk about it. Case in point. Redditors claim that this is the expansion that killed WoW, and yet World of Warcraft is still here. Still making Blizzard billions of dollars, and it still has millions of subscribers. So the question is, why? How has a game from 2004 outlived not just its competition, but even its own studio's reputation? That's the mystery I want to solve. And to do that, we need to look at all the times WoW should have died and see why it didn't, starting with the beginning. Because when World of Warcraft launched in 2004, it wasn't entering this thriving genre, it was a graveyard. EverQuest, Asheron's Call, Ultima Online, they were all groundbreaking and now fading. Most people assumed WoW would follow that same path, a couple good years and then forgotten, becoming just another stupid old MMO.
He took his computer somewhere to play that stupid online game.
Stupid?
But Blizzard did something different. They didn't just sell WoW as a game, they sold it as a world. And more importantly, a world at war. When you made your first character, you weren't just choosing this avatar, you were picking a side. And it was genius. Everything reinforced that rivalry. Separate cities, separate quest lines, separate languages in the game. You couldn't even say hello to the other side. It came out as gibberish. So when you saw a real Horde player out in the world, as an Alliance player, they weren't just a stranger, they were the enemy. And it mattered. And guys, the battles that came out in this rivalry in Vanilla WoW were legendary. You didn't log into Azeroth just to level up. You logged in to be part of a war. And this design choice by the devs did something brilliant. It made you recruit your friends. Because if they chose the opposite faction, you couldn't play together. WoW wasn't just a game you played with friends, it was this tribe that you belonged to. And that tribalism, the character selection, everything about this game it bled into pop culture. From drink commercials to truck commercials. And my favorite, the celebrity ads. World of Warcraft ads were so fun back then. Just top tier video game marketing. And it wasn't just the official marketing of the game that was killing it. Inside the game, players were creating their own legends. In 2005, a guild prepping for a raid was immortalized in internet canon when one guy shouted,
"Let's do this, Leroy Dragons!"
Oh my god, he just ran in.
Guys, that clip went viral before viral videos were even a thing. And later that same year, WoW made international news when a glitch caused the corrupted blood plague, a disease from a dungeon that spread uncontrollably into major cities. Thousands of players were infected, NPCs died, cities became quarantine zones. Scientists actually study what happened here as a model for how real pandemics spread. And if something even crazier happened, South Park dropped Make Love, Not Warcraft. Dude, such a funny episode, and if you're around back then, you know how crazy this was when the episode dropped. WoW was legitimately, it was everywhere. Blizzard was everywhere. You couldn't escape this game. Because World of Warcraft was not just a video game. It was this cultural event, this cultural wave, and people were hooked. By 2006, only a few years after the release, WoW had passed 6 million subscribers, shattering every record in MMO history, just blowing everybody else out of the water. This was the first time WoW should have died. It should have joined the rest of the genre in the MMO graveyard. It should have spiked and then just burned. But it didn't. And by 2008, World of Warcraft wasn't just big, it was untouchable. The second expansion, Wrath of the Lich King, was more than this update. It was a global event. Arthas, one of the most iconic villains Blizzard has ever created, my boy from Warcraft 3, this man with the rose petals, was finally in the game, and players were obsessed. Sidebar for a second, my favorite cinematics in gaming history seem to all feature these rose petals. I mean, there's just something so poetic about them. And if you haven't played the Warcraft 3 campaign, just go watch these cinematics in this game. They're simply incredible. Anyways, side tangent, but back to WoW. At the midnight launch of Frozen Throne, GameStops were packed with lines of players in cosplay. And when guilds finally defeated him, they made YouTube tribute videos set to Linkin Park.
I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter.
This was WoW at its absolute peak. 12 million subscribers, 12 million people paying every month to be part of this world. No other MMO in history has ever hit that number. And for players, this wasn't just a game. It was a second life. I remember my brother literally scheduling his college classes around raids when WoW first came out. Dude, Tuesday night raids weren't just a game session. They were sacred. If you missed, you didn't just lose loot. You let your guild down. And that's how strong this community was. But then the first mistake was made by Blizzard. In 2009, Blizzard added a feature called the Dungeon Finder. On paper, it was brilliant. Instead of spamming chat for hours trying to find a group, you pressed a button and the system instantly matched you with other players. Efficient, right? But here's the problem. That friction, that awkwardness of talking with strangers, convincing random people to join and travel across this digital world together, that was the magic. That's how friendships started. That's how communities grew. And then suddenly, you didn't need to talk to anyone. You just clicked a button, ran the dungeon, and never saw those people again. It was efficient, but it made Azeroth feel a little less alive. And the hits just kept coming. In 2010, Blizzard launched Cataclysm. It was bold. They literally blew up Azeroth. Old zones were destroyed, quest lines rewritten, the whole world just reshaped. For new players, it was pretty exciting. But for veterans, it was heartbreaking. The places they had built memories were just gone. Then came Mists of Pandaria in 2012. By all accounts, it was a solid expansion. I enjoyed it personally, but it was just off for many people, and it was mocked endlessly as the Kung Fu Panda MMO. Memes spread faster than the marketing itself. And beneath the memes was a deeper truth. The social bonds that made WoW magical were starting to break. From Wrath's peak of 12 million subs, the numbers dropped to around 9 million in 2012. Speculation, but pretty accurate. That's still massive, but it was the first real signs of decline. This was the end of WoW's golden age, and sadly, cracks were starting to appear, and the community was weakening, and players were just drifting away. By 2013, World of Warcraft was still a big game, but you could feel it slipping. That spark that once pulled millions into Azeroth was starting to fade. Then Blizzard promised a comeback. Warlords would take us back to Warcraft's roots. Brutal Orc Warlords, nostalgic zones, that gritty feel from Warcraft 3. And at first, people believed them. More midnight launches, there was cosplay, there was a ton of hype. But the moment it came out, players were not happy. You'd log in, send followers on missions, and log right back off. The world still looked like WoW, but it felt empty. There was no reason to talk to anyone, no reason to leave your garrison. By 2015, subs dropped from 9-10 million to 5. Half the player base just gone in a year. And for the first time, players weren't mad because the game was bad. They were mad because they were bored, because they weren't playing with their friends. There was no incentive. And Blizzard itself started to change. Chris Metzen, the voice of Thrall, the heart of Warcraft, he retired. Mike Morhaime, he stepped down. Jeff Kaplan left. The people who built this world were gone or were leaving, and fans could feel it. You'd hear it everywhere. This isn't the same Blizzard. And they were right, because the next year proved it. It's BlizzCon 2016. A fan steps up to the mic and asks the question everyone in the audience is thinking or wanting to ask. And then J. Allen Brack drops one of the most infamous lines in gaming history.
Have you ever thought about adding servers for previous expansions as they were then?
No. And by the way, you don't want to do that either. You think you do, but you don't.
That one sentence became the symbol of how far Blizzard had drifted from its community. They weren't listening anymore. But while Blizzard was telling players what they didn't want, players were already building it themselves. That same year of BlizzCon, a fan-made private server called Nostalrius went live. And it was everything people had been asking for. No dungeon finder, no fast travel, no hand-holding, just the original game, the one that forced you to talk to people, make friends, and earn your progress. It was slow, it was hard, and it was beautiful. Hundreds of thousands of people joined up, me included. For a moment, it felt like Azeroth was alive again, and that made Blizzard nervous. So the company sent a cease and desist, and they shut Nostalrius down. Fans were pissed. They just wanted their home back, and Blizzard kicked them out and slammed the door shut. The uproar and negative PR was too big to ignore. So Blizzard eventually invited the Nostalrius devs to HQ to talk. And a year later, at BlizzCon 2017, they did it. They announced World of Warcraft Classic. The same executives who once said, "You think you do, but you don't," were now celebrating the return of Vanilla WoW a year later. Who would have thought that if you build what people actually ask for, they'll be happy? Crazy, right? And then, just as Classic was being built, Blizzard launched Battle for Azeroth, promising a return to that Horde versus Alliance. I was stoked. This is what drew me into Warcraft in the first place. It felt like Blizzard remembered what WoW actually was. But underneath all that hype was just another grind. Blizzard added a new system called Azerite Armor. Your gear got stronger the more you played. Sounds great, right? Except every time you found a new piece of armor, you had to start the grind over. Dozens of hours gone, just on repeat. Then came the reputation grinds, repeating daily chores just to unlock storylines. Not to mention there's the Warfronts and the island expeditions. It all just felt like promised adventure, and it instead felt like busy work. By the end of 2018, WoW was at its lowest active count ever, around 4 million players. But there was some hope. World of Warcraft Classic released, and instantly it was like stepping into a time machine. Streamers like Asmongold drew hundreds of thousands of viewers. New players wanted to see what the hype was all about. Old players wanted to see if the magic was still real, if it was still there. And then came one of the wildest moments in gaming history. Joker TV, a random player, became the first person in the world to hit level 60. Over 300,000 people were watching this live on Twitch. It felt like this event, not an expansion, not a patch, an event. And it reminded everyone what WoW had always been about: people. It wasn't the graphics, it wasn't the systems, it was logging in and seeing the world busy again. The taverns were packed, the trade chat was chaos. People were making friends in the dungeons again. Classic had brought the world back to life, not because it was new, but because it made players feel like they belonged again. 2020 should have been this victory lap. Right? Classic was booming, subs were up, the world was talking about World of Warcraft again. And then Shadowlands launched, and things just started to crack again. It looked incredible. It always does. But once you got in, again, it was just grind city. Somewhere along the way, WoW has just stopped feeling like exploration, and it started feeling like we're just digging holes, right? Hoping to eventually find the fun again.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
That's too damn bad!
Players were burned out. Streamers started leaving again. And outside the game, things got worse. There was massive lawsuits, harassment scandals, walkouts. The kind of headlines no one ever thought would have come from Blizzard Entertainment. For players who grew up with this company, it felt personal. The same devs who once walked on stage shouting, "For the Horde," were now being accused of discrimination and abuse. And people were disgusted. Some canceled subs, some swore off Blizzard forever, and then there was tragedy. In July 2020, Byron Reckful Bernstein, one of the most beloved WoW players ever, he passed away. For over a decade, Reckful had been WoW for many people. He wasn't just a streamer, he was this legend. He was this community icon and a voice for the players who grew up playing this game. And when the news broke, players all around stopped to give tribute. Thousands of players logged back into the game. Entire servers stopped to honor this man. Players stood shoulder to shoulder, forming lines to pay their tribute. Blizzard, wonderfully so, later added a permanent NPC in the game, a rogue trainer named Reckful. And for a brief moment, all that noise, the lawsuits, all the burnout, it disappeared. And what was left was the reason WoW had survived for so long. Its people. If you haven't connected the dots yet in this video, World of Warcraft was never just a game for so many. It was a world where friendships were forged, where people, crazy enough, fell in love, and where sometimes people said goodbye. And then after the funeral, after all this stuff, time moved on. The news faded, the lawsuits came and went. Blizzard released another expansion, and then another. WoW got beat by Final Fantasy, and then retook the MMO throne. Right? There was new dungeons, there's been new systems. Blizzard was bought. WoW employees unionized. Players left. Players came back. The World of Warcraft has just kept spinning. And every few years, the same story resurfaces. WoW is dead. World of Warcraft is dead. And every few years, millions of people prove it isn't. Because despite everything, the scandals, the studio, the drama, the burnout, people still come back. Not for Blizzard, not for the next expansion trailer, but for each other. Because the people they met in Azeroth are still there. Because this world, with all its flaws, still feels like home for many. That's the thing about World of Warcraft. Over time, it's become more than just a game. It's become a third place. A place you logged into after work, after school, to be with your friends. Where your people, your second family waits for you online, hanging out in chat. This world is a place where you aren't just a character, you're a part of something bigger. For me, it was late night college raids in a cramped dorm room, hanging out with my buddies and trying not to wake my roommate Brady. For my brother, it was planning his entire class schedule around raid nights and staying connected with his friends for years after college as he continued to grow and have a family. For thousands of others, it was a father and son questing together every weekend, a couple who met in a dungeon and maybe got married, a group of strangers who became real-life friends. People met some of their closest people here. Some even met partners, right? Some said goodbye. When Reckful died, the community didn't mourn a streamer. They mourned one of their own, someone who reminded them that this world still mattered. And that's what makes World of Warcraft so special. It's not the graphics, it's not the systems, it's not even the story, it's the people who fill it. That's why Azeroth, why World of Warcraft is still here. Because it isn't a product anymore, it's a shared memory, it's a shared world. A place kept alive not by updates or patches, but by the people who refuse to let it fade. So no, World of Warcraft isn't alive because of clever monetization or corporate strategy or incredible marketing that may have launched the game to its success, but it's alive because millions of people built something inside it that can't be replicated. It's alive because they made it a second home. And that's why World of Warcraft cannot be killed. It's a world that's outlived its rivals, it's outlived its creators, and possibly even its own time. I hope Microsoft remembers this, since they are now the owners of the World of Warcraft. I hope they know that for many, this game is truly their third place, the special place between work and home, to spend time with the people they love.